Hello, it's author Tonya Duncan Ellis, author of the Sophie Washington book series, with another episode of Write This, my author interview show. And today I'm pleased to welcome on my good friend Patrice McLaurin to talk about her author journey and representation in children's literature. I first became acquainted with her through the internet maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I've never met her in person, but I just feel such a kinship to her, love all that she's doing, and love her work. So I'm happy to be able to have this sit down with her today, and so happy that she agreed to join me. And I see that she has sent a request on, so I'm going to pop her on now. So this is going to be a great time talking to Patrice. Let's see. Get her. Hey, how you doing?
Hey!
I'm so glad to see you.
I'm here. I am
Oh my
here.
goodness, you are hype. You got plenty of energy, girl.
Coffee.
Oh, okay. I
The
had
the midday Joe. Yes.
I should have got me a cup in before I came on with you.
Or a nap. You know what we need.
Yes. Well, I am so happy to have this sit down with you. I have admired you for years online, and we've helped each other on our journeys, and I just appreciate your friendship and all that you've done. And I'm really just proud of you when I look at all you've done and the message you have for our youth. It's just been wonderful.
Thank you, sis. And I can say the same for you. Just watching your journey has been amazing. I have loved every minute of it. And I just cannot wait to see how far you're going to take this thing. I think I told you one day, girl, my hands hurt from clapping for you so much. But I am so proud of you. I've just enjoyed every minute of it. And I'm really, really honored and happy to be here.
Yes, well, thank you. And I'm glad to see all of our guests coming in and coming in to support. Thank you all for being here for another week. Now, Patrice, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where are you from? And how did you get started writing children's books?
All right. Well, I am from Bessemer, Alabama. So that's a little small town right outside of Birmingham. Graduated from Jesselyn High School. Graduated college from the Alabama A&M University. And so it was in Bessemer in my elementary school and my middle school that I kind of discovered that I had a little knack for writing. You know what I'm saying? I won a writing contest when I was in like the 4th grade. And then I won another one when I was in the 8th grade. And I was like, oh, I might be kind of good at this. So then, it just kind of turned into a hobby. I wrote a few short stories, but I primarily did poetry. And that was just like a really firm, strong hobby of mine up until like my late 30s, early 40s. And then fast forward to me publishing my first children's book. That just kind of came out of the ethers almost, you know what I'm saying? Like, I tell people that the book is rooted in activism, but it was just birthed out of trauma. It was birthed out of the trauma that was and is Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Tamir Rice. And, I just see our babies getting murdered, for lack of a better term. So I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? How can I be solutions based? One of the things that I recognized early on was the impact of media manipulation, the impact of negative stereotypical imagery of Black people in general, Black boys and men in particular. I think we can all agree that any disparaging caricature that's placed upon a person has been placed upon Black folks, Black boys and Black men in particular. So in writing this book, what I wanted to do was I wanted to interrupt that narrative, right? I wanted to interrupt that narrative. I wanted to create a new piece of media, a type of media that would humanize Black people in general, that would humanize Black boys in particular. And I wanted that humanization to happen via Black excellence. So that is how Have You Thanked an Inventor Today was born.
Right. Now, do you have a copy of it with you now or no? We can show that on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful book. I love the illustrations and all the depictions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have you thanked an inventor today? That's just wonderful. And
This my
then,
baby, y'all.
yeah, now you have another book that's kind of, I haven't read your second book, and it's more of an affirming book as well. Which one is that one?
Well, okay, so I got Have You Thanked an Inventor today, right? So this highlights the Black inventors. And then I got Have You Thanked the Kid Venture today.
Oh,
Now, this one isn't as, I like to say, culturally relevant, to the Black community as Have You Thanked an Inventor today. But it does highlight those inventors who we rarely talk about, which are children. So we got this book right here. And then I tie my Thank an Inventor series up with my coloring and activity book.
okay.
But then the affirming book that you're speaking about is I Am Because I Choose, right?
Mm.
So this is my social emotional learning baby. And basically in this book, I'm trying to get across two important factors, right? I want the reader to know that, first of all, you're a byproduct of the choices that you make. But then, secondly, you also choose your behavior, right? And the main thing that I want our children to get from this is that you choose your behavior and you cannot blame other people for what it is that you choose to do. I think the earlier that we learn about the importance of accountability,
Mm.
the better off we'll all be. That's a lesson I wish that I had learned in childhood in a real way.
Mm.
I didn't really get the memo or get the message until I became an adult. But I think that we all kind of go through life a lot of times just blaming other people for our choices. But we can't do that because we can't control other people. The only person you can control is yourself. So as soon as you recognize the how you participated in your situation, then the quicker you'll be able to change it or keep it going if that's something, if you like what's happening, but you have to recognize that you're responsible for it.
Right. And I love just hearing about your background, how all of the choices you've made and different things you've done have kind of led you to where you are. Because I've seen on Twitter you share poetry, and I love all the poems you share. And some of them you've posted, and then I'll read them, and my kids are like, here she goes again, here she, because I love poetry too. It's
Hmm.
really cool to me to see how your love of writing poetry, and even with the picture books, they're kind of like poems in themselves, so it all kind of just flowed on into what you are today.
Yeah, I wanted them to rhyme because I feel like that's one of the easiest ways for children to retain information. I know it was an easy way for me to retain information. I remember I used to go to church, when I lived in Bessemer, Alabama. I went to Antioch Baptist Church. Shout out Antioch Baptist Church. But we went to Sunday school every morning, and I had awesome Sunday school teachers, right? But what helped me to really learn the book of Genesis was a verse by KRS-One,
Oh,
right? So it was a verse by KRS-One and just the way that he broke it down. And I still know it to this day.
right.
So I feel like rhyming just kind of helps children to retain the information. So that's part of the reason why it was important to me to include rhyme in my book.
Right. And you seem to make it all fun for kids. And I think I read, did you have a background in education as well? It seems, or was
Well,
it
I'm an
education?
educator at heart, right?
Right.
But I didn't figure that out until after I graduated college. I have a degree in finance, but
Right.
I didn't realize that I was an educator at heart until after I graduated. But yo, Tonya, I just couldn't go back to school and get there. I just couldn't do it. I'm like, I've paid off these loans. It's a
Right.
wrap on that. But I still kind of kept my foot to the fire as far as educating children are concerned. I volunteered in my children's school. I taught character education for like 3 or 4 years. I taught sex education. I taught at an alternative school. So I always kept just my ear to the streets of education, if you will, because I was an educator at heart. I am an educator at heart. And that's why my books are primarily informational and educational, because this is the way that I am now educating children, right? I'm not doing it in the classroom, but if I could get my books in the classroom, then I can actually educate more children, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I am an educator at heart, but that's my background in education.
Okay, I didn't know that. Now, something that's really been amazing to me too, Patrice, is that you have taken your message basically worldwide. And how have you done that? I've seen you in England and all these different countries online. How has this come about?
Girl, by God's grace, I can't, you know what I'm saying? It's really by God's grace. It's been like word of mouth. I
Mhm.
guess, somebody will tell somebody, and they say, hey, this little girl, she's kind of good at what she does. Y'all should look her up. And then the book has just done, amazing.
Right.
So I can't say that I've done anything particular to garner that type of recognition. It's really just been coming to me. So I have to say it's by God's grace. And I put the work in, of course, but I think that work and that word of mouth activity is really what has
Right.
helped to just propel me internationally, if you
Right.
will.
And you really have a quality product. I know when we have authors looking to self-publish, her book is a great quality book, and it's a message that is resonating that we all need, I guess, that we want. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, especially coming from you,
Yeah.
the authoress extraordinaire.
Thank you. But I really have always loved what you've done from the time I saw your book and what you were doing and your heart for children. I really, it's
Thank
very
you,
genuine and true, and I really appreciate what you're doing. So it's
thank you.
now, what new projects are you working on? What is coming up for us next from you?
So I have a new book that I've completed. the The release date is still to be determined. I'm just kind of tying up loose ends. But this book is completely different from anything that I've done. It's titled Dandy McLaurin Has Her Say, right? So it's basically about this dandelion who doesn't like the fact that people consider dandelions weeds instead of flowers. Because when you consider a dandelion a weed, quite often we cut down weeds before they have an opportunity to blossom. But people love flowers, right? And so the only reason that dandelions are really being mistreated like this is because of this misnomer that's been placed upon them. So she feels like she can go out and she can share the story of dandelions. And once people learn more about dandelions, then they'll treat dandelions with respect. So she basically uses her big and powerful voice to change her world, right? So the book is kind of layered. It's STEM meets SEL, right? Because in the book, we're learning all of these fantastic facts about dandelions. But then in the book, we're also addressing um, character or social emotional learning issues, or character education issues is what I call it. We're addressing civic responsibility, right? But then we're also addressing social justice issues, because many of us, particularly people of color, right, have been misjudged, and we've been treated unfairly because of a false label that has been placed upon us, right? So if our children can learn early on the impact of that mislabeling, the impact of that, name calling, and how it can really affect, even though it's not a person, it's a dandelion. I think it's just a palatable way to deliver that message. So I'm really excited about it. It's written in the voice of a girl, and what's different about this book is that it has dialogue. None of my other books have dialogue. So I just kind of got my feet wet, tried to level up a bit as an author. I included dialogue in the book. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
And that book can appeal to all children, basically, of any background, because we all kind of, whether it's your skin color or anything, there's different things where you may not be seen as the person that fits in or whatever. So
Right.
that has a universal appeal too. So
I'm hoping so.
that's good. Now, what has the reception been to your books since you've come out with them? What have people said about the messaging?
Oh, I mean, the it's been like amazing. I often say I'm really excited and happy that God's plan for me isn't limited to my imagination, because the reception has just really been beyond what I could have ever anticipated. People really love and appreciate the book. They love and appreciate the messaging. I have adults telling me, I learned something from reading the book too, which is awesome. Because at the end of the day, I just feel like picture books are for everybody. I don't even think we should have like age limits on picture books, like K-5 or whatever. They're really for everyone. I think everybody can pick up a picture book and learn something. So the reception has just really been amazing. Schools, the reception from schools, like, it's interesting, right? When I wrote the book, like how I said is rooted in activism. Okay, so I wrote the book and I wrote it about Black inventors because I wanted to highlight Black excellence. I didn't really understand that it was a STEM book. I had no clue. Like, that wasn't even a goal or objective of mine to write a STEM book. It just so happened. And the way that I found out in a real way was one day my husband was like, have you ever Googled yourself? And I'm like, nah, why would I do that? He was like, well, you wrote the book, Google yourself, see what's out there, right? So I Googled myself, Tonya, and I see where Microsoft listed the book, Have You Thanked an Inventor Today, as a book that inspires and promotes STEM. And I'm like, what? So now when I got the wink and the nod from Microsoft, now I'm able to let educators know, hey, this is a STEM read. It's been acclaimed by Microsoft. And I think that's one of the things that just helped to propel me as well. I think educators took it a little bit more seriously. Right. Because it got the wink and the nod from Microsoft. But like I said, I had no clue. I didn't even know it was a STEM book. That wasn't the goal or the objective. The goal was to humanize Black boys, highlight Black excellence. I wanted to raise the vibration of our children. I wanted to raise the vibration of all children, right? Because at the end of the day, if children of other ethnicities can pick up a book and see Black excellence, right, then that will help to interrupt the inferiority complex that not only exists subconsciously in the psyche of Black children. It kind of exists subconsciously in the psyche of most children when they pick up children's books and they see this huge representation of white people and very small representation of other ethnicities. So yeah, I just had all kinds of intentions behind the book. And I just think by virtue of my intention, the book had to do what it had to do.
Right. And it did what it was made to do. So it's been doing
it. It did.
It's been doing it. And then when you mentioned Microsoft, I also noticed this year you posted something about Amazon promoting your book. So what was that about?
Oh yeah, so one of my dear sisters, she has a nonprofit called I See Me Inc., where she's trying to actually interrupt the school to prison pipeline by making certain that children have access to books where they see themselves reflected, right? So we've worked together on a couple of different occasions. So she actually collaborated with Amazon, where they were presenting this Black History initiative where they wanted to share Black stories by Black authors. And she just reached out to me and asked me would I be interested in participating. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So that's kind of how that happened. And I was, especially excited about that because the target audience, of course, was everybody. But the targeted audience in the real way were students from my hometown of Bessemer, from the city of Birmingham, the city of Fairfield, the city of Midfield, and these are all surrounding areas. And so I was really excited to be able to share with those students in particular.
Right. Now, what has your family said about what's happened with the book, or what have they felt about it?
Girl, they so supportive. Like, okay, so my immediate family, shout out to my husband. He is my rock, my graphic designer. He makes sure that all of my back end work, the layouts of the book and all of that stuff get done. My son is my fulfillment manager. My daughter, she was my content creator, but she quit on me, girl. She said, I don't like working for you. Right. So I got that support from the my immediate family. And then, you know, of course, I got my sisters, you know, my mom, rest in peace. When she was here, she was always, you know, support my daughter. And she was always reposting my stuff and doing all of this stuff. I think my sister, I saw her hop on here. So I got mad support, and I don't even think I could be doing this without that support. It's like the energy that I'm getting from my people, from my family, it's like fueling me in a real, real way. Right. And now that my mama has transitioned, I got that extra pressure because now I got to make sure that people know that Brenda Brown daughter don't mess around. You see,
you've been proving that, because how many years has it been since the book came out? It's been out.
So yeah, I published Thank an Inventor in 2016.
Okay, yeah.
I published it in 2016, and just even that story is you ain't asked me about it, but I'm gonna tell you. That story is just kind of crazy, right? Because I was getting ready to publish the book, and I was also working a full-time job. I was working as a staff accountant at this media company, but the book was about to come out, and so we're on the verge, and I'm just thinking to myself, I knew what I wanted to do based upon my history as a character education coordinator. I knew that I wanted to get this book into schools. I knew that I wanted to do authors visits, that I wanted to do all of this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this with a full-time job? What am I going to do? How am I going to do this with a full-time job? And then God stepped in and said, oh, I got a remedy. You fired. Right? Girl, I don't know if anybody has ever danced up out of a gig the way that I danced up out of that one, but I was like, yes. And it was just the perfect timing because I got laid off, right? Now, fortunately, I did have my husband who was able to shore me up, you know, as far as economics and all of that stuff, making sure the bills was paid so I could build, right? But I got fired. And then my supervisor, she even hit me up, Tonya. She was like, I need you back. I want you to come back. You know, how much would it cost for you to come back? And I was like, nah, I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because the way that this has lined up, the alignment of all of this is a plan. And if I interrupt this plan, I'm finna mess up my whole trajectory. I'm like, I can't come back. You know, thank you. I appreciate you, but deuces. So like even that, it's just everything about this journey has been amazing.
Right.
I still pinch myself.
Right, because when I've been watching you, you've just been growing and growing and growing. So, you know, whatever you're doing, follow that plan and keep on following it because it's
yes, ma'am. Oh,
now we have people on here. We have aspiring authors. Uh-oh, you okay? Uh-oh, something's happening. So just take a break for a second and we're going to continue as we go on here. But what's happening here? Oh, my
nose just started bleeding.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, Patrice. So
I do because I am extra hot.
Right.
I am extra hot.
Right.
And I suffer from nosebleeds. That's a fun fact about Miss Patrice. So this is the beauty of life. I would say, let's stop it. But you know what? I'm not going to say let's stop it. Because guess what, people? We're human. And things happen.
Right. Now we are almost wrapping up. So you tell me. I was going to wrap up in a couple minutes anyway. But the last question that I had to ask, if you're okay, is we have a lot of new authors, aspiring authors on here. And I wanted to know what advice you may have for them as they start their journey.
So I would advise you to, I know you have a story to tell, right? So you get your story, you tell your story. But make sure that you have a quality product first and foremost, right? So you need to have a quality product. And I would just encourage you I will also encourage self-publishing. Now, one of the things that I love about self-publishing is I feel like one of my favorite words is interruption. And I feel like what self-publishing is doing, it is interrupting traditional publishing. So we see the stats all the time about how traditional publishers don't really publish authors of color. They don't publish books about people of color. We've seen those stats. But what I think self-publishing, the popularity of it is doing, I feel like it's a movement, and I feel like it's allowing more authors to be able to tell their stories, right? And so I love that about self-publishing. I would encourage self-publishing because you get all of your royalties. You don't have to really, share your funds with a lot of people. I would encourage ownership of your ISBNs. I would encourage ownership. And I would just encourage you to follow your dream, right? I was 40 years old when I published my book. 40. I was 40 years old when I published my book. So to me, that's an indication that you are never, ever, ever too old to follow, to achieve your dreams. So if you got a dream, if you got a story inside of you, write it down and get it out and put it out there and put, a grand intention behind it and watch it fly.
Right.
I
I
don't
know when Toni Morrison started writing, Patrice, but she was in her 40s or 50s when she started. I read. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, and then another person who also encouraged me was Bill Withers, because Bill Withers, he's one of my favorite singers, and Bill Withers started when he was almost 40. So yeah, he started when he was almost 40. But it's like, the thing is also, one thing that we like to rush things, right? But one thing that I've learned is that all things work together for good and everything happens in perfect timing, right? So Have You Thanked an Inventor today, it was the first book I published. It wasn't the first book I wrote, I actually tried to write this little children's book called Isabella, the Tall Teller, where Isabella was this little girl and she told these stories. And so, the premise of the book was, we're going to have to try and figure out, is she telling the tale or is she telling the truth? Didn't really quite work out, right? And then I actually wrote I Am Because I Choose. And I Am Because I Choose, I wrote that before writing Have You Thanked an Inventor today. But this was the third book I published. But I had situations to happen. I couldn't afford the illustrator. But then I also had experiences that I had to have in order for me to be successful as a self-published author. I needed to be a character education coordinator so I could understand how to go into the school systems and work with the administrators, right? I needed to be a character education coordinator so I could understand how to create and develop lesson plans, because I have lesson plans that accompany my books. I needed to be a staff accountant so that I can know how to keep my books, right? I needed to be all of these things. I needed to be a volunteer. I needed to be everything that I was that led me to this particular space and place in my life. So don't rush it. You know what I'm saying? It's coming. All things work together for good. And then just also remember that if a door closes, probably 9 times out of 10, the reason why that door is closing is because God got a whole nother door that He's trying to open for you, right? And you busy trying to pick the lock to get into this door that's closed. It's shut for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Just walk on by and just wait for this next door to open.
Right. And
all things work together for good.
Yeah, and I tell that to my kids all the time too. When you look through, when something's shut, that door shut, a bigger door opened.
Right.
That was God's plan for whatever it is that you need to be doing. So that's great.
You just got to have patience. That's all.
Well,
hey, Jocelyn, I see my sister.
And thank you all for tuning in, everybody that's come in. Patrice, thank you so much for this time. And where can people find you and also buy your books?
All right. So my Instagram, y'all follow me on Instagram because girl be struggling trying to get followers. Okay. So my Instagram is at Patrice McLaurin. Twitter is at McLaurin Writes. Facebook is at Thank an Inventor. my my website, my author website is patricemclaurin.com. My publishing company's website is kimbrapublishing.com. And you can find my books on either of my websites, and you can find my books primarily anywhere the books are sold.
Right, right. Okay.
And one more thing I want to shout out. I want to shout out this book. You're hearing it first here on Write This. All right. So shout out this book. I'm really excited that this book was just accepted by the Birmingham City School System as part of their SEL curriculum.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Yes. So then that's another thing too that I would encourage authors to do. Write books that not only parents and children would enjoy, but write books that a teacher can appreciate.
Right. Great advice, Patrice. And congratulations on that. That is great. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming in, stopping by, and chatting with me, Patrice. And thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Write This.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Tonya. Bye.
Bye.